Welcome to another episode of Book Eaters. While April and I are glad to be recording another episode, we are missing the lovely Iris, who normally keeps us in line. So just to be sure that things get totally out of control, we've invited the funniest person that we know, Tracy.
True.
To join us as we talk about books that literally have made us laugh out loud, or at least chuckle to ourselves. We have prepared a cocktail, as is our way. For this episode, it is called LOL, which contains just 3 ingredients: lemonade, orange vodka, and limoncello. For the recipe or for a tutorial on how to make the cocktail, check out our YouTube channel or on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. At this point, we should pour our drinks. Y'all ready? And then I pour the LOL all over my keyboard, and then there's nothing but stickiness forever.
Yep, I poured it all over mine too. Excellent.
All right.
Cheers.
I miss being with you ladies in person.
I know.
Cheers.
Cheers.
That is very, very good.
It's delicious. So, straight to it.
Okay.
I want to start talking first about collections. Now, my first experience with humor books was a collection of essays written by Irma Bombeck, and it was called If Life is a Bowl Full of Cherries, Why Am I in the Pits? Have you guys read this book?
I feel like I've heard of it. Did she also write the with 6 you get egg roll?
Possibly. She wrote a lot of books.
So, yeah. She had a lot
it
of
was
books.
a number 1 bestseller, but it
But
was
it's like from the 60s, right?
it was 78.
Okay.
So, So my mom had the book. Obviously, it was hers. And it was the one, there's a couple of different covers. And the one that my mom had was the one where it was like just cherries everywhere. And then there was like a girl like laying in the cherries. And she was sort of like lounging and her shoe had fallen off.
The illustrations made an impact.
I mean, it's important because there were several different versions of the book. And that is the first print, which is the one that I read. And that matters. Because when I went on Amazon to check it out, to buy that particular paperback book, it cost $908.
Wow.
Yeah. So comedy is gold, is what I'm saying. So what I remember most about this book is that I think I was maybe 10 when I read it. And that it was sort of humor that I thought was what adult humor was. Because like I would read it and it was about like laundry and ironing and doing the dishes. And I was like, this is not for me. I don't care about these things. This is what adult humor is.
Home insurance.
Right. Like that's adult stuff. Like I don't care about that. And then now when I think about adult humor, it's more, sex and violence and swear words. Definitely not chores and carpool.
Right.
So, Tracy, do you have any experience with essay type books or even like collections of cartoons?
So I do have experience with the collections. I first heard David Sedaris on NPR, and I was like, he's hilarious. So I started picking up his books and just devouring them because they are just so funny and so well written. And it's like they're about nothing at all. Like you could read 50 pages and not really learn anything, but you can't stop reading, and that's what I love about it is that he has quite the way with words. So he was one of my first. I also do like BJ Novak, who was one of the writers on The Office.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
And he played Ryan on The Office.
Total dick.
I couldn't watch The Office because of my sensitivity to being embarrassed for characters.
Oh yeah, but there's definitely some embarrassed there. But he wrote a collection of short stories that I find hilarious. He talks about one where the key to finding true love is to wear a bright red shirt every day. And it goes into, and it's because of course I do these on Audible. So this is probably a 6-minute story about how this gentleman wears a bright red shirt every day. And he just goes about his life and doing the things he loves to do. And that every night he gets on Craigslist and looks at the missed connection section and looks for mention of someone saying you wearing a red shirt to find his true love. And it hasn't worked yet, but he's going to keep trying.
Damn it.
So it's just little stories like that are kind of funny, but just funny enough to be amusing, but still kind of true enough where you're wondering, is someone doing that? Is someone wearing a red shirt every day? Take that idea. He also has this great concept of heaven, that your heaven is when you feel the prime of your life was, and you relive that over and over again. Like if you feel that 31 was your best time, you're 31 for the rest of eternity. And so he goes to heaven, this gentleman goes to heaven, and he tries to meet with his grandmother, who had died when he was a little kid. And she keeps putting him off, putting him off, putting him off. And finally she has dinner with him. And she's just like, look, I loved you and all, but you're not my life right now. I'm going to go see Frank Sinatra sing tonight like I do every night. She goes, I don't want anything to do with you.
Oh,
It was just, because he didn't know her as a person. He knew her as a little kid knowing grandma. So, and I thought it was hilarious. I didn't mean to make Michele say, oh no, but I thought it was hilarious where she was too busy having a great time, living her best life, and letting the young man go live his best life with whatever concert he was going to go see.
Well, hopefully he found something to live his best life with that wasn't about his grandma.
Well, I've got 2 comments to make about that. 3 comments. 4. No, I'm kidding. There's only 3. I love stories like that because so often we tend to think of the elderly as lonely and dependent on other people to assign value to them, like who comes to see them, how often do their family calls, that sort of thing. So I hope that as I age, that I'm still independent and have my own interests, and I'm the one pushing my daughter off, sorry, we'll have to catch up next week. I've got, my own things going, because I can't really think of a better gift to give your children than for them to know that they don't have to worry about you and that they're not responsible for giving your life meaning,
Definitely.
No, but like one dinner, come on. Drinks even.
Right, but think about it. If you're the type of person like every 3rd Thursday of the month, I go and have dinner with my grandma. And then sometimes you don't want to go, you've got life happens.
Yeah.
You don't want to go, you don't feel like it, but you always make yourself go because you love your grandma. How cool would it be if one Thursday she was like, you know what, I'm sorry, dude, I got other plans. You'd be relieved, but you wouldn't have to feel guilty about it because she's got her own thing. Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
second thing about that, I have had that book recommended to me, B.J. Novak. I got it. I tried it. Could not get into it. B.J. Novak for me is a little like Bruce Springsteen and maybe The Loneliest Monk, where intellectually I know that talent and that I should appreciate it, but I don't.
You don't like Bruce Springsteen?
I don't. I love some of his songs, like just to read the lyrics, and other people do covers of it.
Did you
and I
listen?
love the covers.
Did you listen to the book or did you read it?
Well, let me just clarify. I do love Nebraska. That album is amazing. But other than that, no. I did both. Maybe I couldn't get past his office character because I just hated him so much on that show. He was just such a little obsequious little, and the way that he treated, Mindy Kaling. And Mindy Kaling supposedly has a great book too, but I haven't tried to read that one yet. Yeah. The buzz set in, so I lost my train of thought. I would like to go back and talk about David Sedaris.
Let's talk about David Sedaris because he's another one that I read early on.
Me too.
I never listened to it because that was before I discovered audiobooks, but I did read it and I loved it.
And can any of you recall the first? Because I feel like I didn't want to have David Sedaris on my list because I knew that was like, it's universal. Who doesn't love David Sedaris, right? But I do remember.
That's how it in ours, Tracy. Did you see that? See
well,
how she is?
Well, no, I just knew that he would naturally come up. You could not have a conversation about humor essayists and not. He's like Mark Twain he's amazing. But I love him intensely. I don't know if y'all have ever been to one of his readings, but he's kind of known for them. And because
have you been like to see a reading?
Yeah. Oh, yes. But he had an early experience where he approached an author that he, had really enjoyed, and it was very rote and, mechanical, and he felt sort of, kind of cheated that experience that he had been looking so forward to. So now he makes a concerted effort, when he, at the end of every reading, he will stay as long as necessary to meet everybody that wants to meet to him. And he asks them personal questions. What?
So I think this is the first time on the podcast where we have talked about this new way of experiencing a story, which is where you're in person being read to you by. This is the first time. Like, this is like the raconteur,
right,
sort of thing, right? Where this is the first time we've ever talked about. It's very exciting.
Well, I highly recommend it. Which you kind of get a taste of it in the audiobooks. I mean, hearing him read it's in his voice, so you get it even more, right? But hearing him in person, he stumbles a little bit and there's squabbles. And the last time I saw him, he was really big into wearing culottes. So he was wearing culottes on stage, and
was this the 80s? Like, what?
No, this was like maybe 4 years ago. So that was like a whole bit that he did. But the point is that he stays and he talks to his fans, and I've never had the courage to get in line to talk to him, because I know that's my one chance, right? And I just want it to mean so much, and I want to be able to say the perfect thing. It's like making your top 10 albums list, or, your favorite movies of all. It's too much pressure. It's too much pressure. So I just need to meet him accidentally. And I have every bit of faith in the world that someday the universe will decree that to happen. We will be in line at the kiosk at the airport to get some new earbuds. We will, we don't know, but David Sedaris and I had a date. I do remember the first book that I ever read from him, and it was Me Talk Pretty one day.
Oh.
I absolutely LOL'd. I laughed long and hard many times. And my favorite story from that was You Can't Kill the Rooster. If y'all have ever... Check it out later. It is hilarious. It's about, so the interesting dynamic with David Sedaris' family, he's got this big family. They're all super talented. It's a Greek family that had to move to North Carolina because of his dad's job. And they, the older siblings had already, sort of lived elsewhere. Mm-hmm. But late in life, his parents had another son who was raised in North Carolina, so he had the Southern accent. And so it's talking about how, like a lot of late children, they are raised with a little bit less expectation and discipline than the parents had for the older
the parents
children.
Are over it. They're like, yeah.
And this brother refers to himself as the rooster, and his sort of rally cry in life is, "You can't kill the rooster." And so when he's talking to the dad, even though that's his dad, and they have this interesting, it's just, I don't want to ruin it for you. I would not do it justice, but it is hilarious. And I would use that anytime I was trying to introduce someone to David Sedaris. The first thing I would do is like, you can't kill the rooster.
So if David Sedaris was not on your list, what book were you thinking of immediately when we talked about collections of stories?
Well, I think immediately was one that I've read pretty recently. Do you know Jenny Slate?
I've heard the name.
Well, so she had like a Netflix special, and it was pretty funny. But I really remember her from a movie about sisters and her parents. They'd had some sort of infidelity.
Wow.
But it was funny. It was when you have it, maybe you do have a cell phone, but in addition to the cell phone, you have the normal setup for taking telephone calls at your house.
Like a landline?
It's called landline. It is called landline. That's the name of
Oh my God, really?
That's the name of the movie. I'm pretty sure.
The movie is called Landline?
Yeah, and maybe it was an independent film. I don't know how I don't remember how I saw it, but it was very, very funny, and she was so adorable and almost like a Zooey Deschanel kind of adorableness.
Oh, I loved it, Zooey Deschanel.
But even quirkier, and maybe I don't want to say
it's not possible to be quirkier.
It is.
I feel like she is the definition of quirky.
It's even more with Jenny Slate because it's a little bit more, I don't want to say authentic, because I'm not trying to imply that but it's just a little more
versions.
It's not always as perfect, and therefore I love it. Like, there are plenty of things about Jenny Slate. I mean, she's quirky as fuck, believe me.
So did she?
But some of it strikes a wrong chord, so I love it even more because it's not absolutely perfect, you know. So yes, she wrote a book, and it is called Little Weirds, and I did LOL reading that book out of delight because she is goddamn delightful. And she's just the way that she and the other thing that's great is that she's a really, really good writer. Like, she is a very talented writer, and the things that she thinks are so unusual. Like, she talks about what the ingredients of her body is, and her muscles are plums, and her heart is a ruby with a light bulb inside of it, and she's made of Hawaiian punch. You know, it's just, you know, it's just so much joy in her. But she also has a lot of, you know, when she describes like episodes with depression. I mean, it's something that I'm not inclined toward, but I felt very heavy listening to it. But even that is just so evocative, the way that she describes it. I mean, I highly recommend it. It's adorable, it's smart, it's sexy. I can't get enough. I hope she writes more.
Oh, well, so would you say that, I mean, it was about her life, but it wasn't an autobiography?
No, parts of it were like.
How do you say that word? Say it with me.
Autobiographical.
Biographical, right. So it wasn't that.
Yeah, there are pieces of it. Like, she talks about her mother, and that's beautiful, the way that she talks about her mother, how they go out and on these nature walks, and the mother will ask her if she can identify a plant, and the mother loves it if she can identify the plant, because then they share it. And then the mother also loves it if she can't identify the plant, because then she can tell her about it, and then she watches something that she knows grow into something bigger. And I mean, it's just beautiful. It's delightful. But so parts of it is autobiographical. A huge thing, like if you saw the Netflix special, is that she grew up in a house where she felt it was haunted, and she was terrified. And so even now, as in the book, she refers to going back to the house, and the mother, she gets up in the morning, she hasn't been able to sleep all night because she's so terrified of having an encounter with these ghosts. And she says she's not afraid of anything that, like, you know, the ghost is going to pop out at her or show her, you know, like decaying scenes of her future or anything like that. Her fear as a performance artist, right, is that the ghost will just stare at her, and if she wants it to stop, it won't. Like, that's her fear, right? It's that specific of a thing. And she must have had it since childhood, because it is so, like, she's pinpointed it to that exact thing. And so she gets up the next morning, and she says she gets up full of pee, because she's not getting up to go to the bathroom. She's in for the night. She is under those covers. She's not going anywhere. And then, so in the morning, her mom's like, Jenny, you look like shit, you know? And the mom attributes it to, you know, troubles that she's having in life. She's going out too much. She's drinking. She's smoking too much pot. Her boyfriend broke up with her. She got fired from her job. But no, it's that she hasn't been able to sleep because she's scared shitless in her house. Anyways, believe me, I'm not anywhere doing justice to the lyrical prose that she
I was going to say, because that sounds more scary than funny.
No, that particular section is funny, but it's also just very evocative. I mean, I'm telling you, she's an amazing writer, and she's adorable. That's a pretty good combination.
That leads pretty closely into the next sort of type of book I want to talk about, which is an autobiography, which is another fairly common, and I think maybe even more common nowadays than it used to be, or maybe I just wasn't paying attention before, of, you know, basically a comedian's life story, or at least the early beginnings of their stories. So the one that I immediately think of is the very first one that I can remember reading, which I didn't read or listen to, which was the Yes, Please by Amy Poehler, which was not as funny as I wanted it to be honest, but it was still really funny, and it was very entertaining. But what I remember the most about it is, well, first of all, that she got her teeth fixed. Like, she talks about that a lot, and I was like, oh, I hadn't noticed her teeth, but maybe that's because they were fixed. I don't know. And then also, like, in the Audible that I listened to, there were multiple people who narrated, but like not the whole thing, like bit parts. Like out of nowhere, there'd be Carol Burnett, and then suddenly it was, Kathleen Turner. With like little cameos would pop up in the middle of the book.
Remember there was that picture of this outfit that she was so proud of?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess there was like an appendix or something of photos.
Appendices?
Which I guess there was in the audio, but it wasn't the same as having it on the same page as the text.
Did you read the book?
I did.
Do you think that was better than having random cameos of voices? The pictures? Like if you had to choose? I think I would still choose audio.
I will say Amy Poehler did a great job narrating her own book, as did Tina Fey with Bossy Pants.
I didn't read Bossy Pants.
Now, I preferred Bossy, I'm sure there's already an intense rivalry between those two ladies, and I don't want to be the powder keg that goes off.
I thought they were like BFFs.
Yeah, they're best friends. I don't think there's
No, I feel like there's some beef, and all it's going to take is my criticism here, where it's going to be like, when you're a jet.
Yeah.
It's going to
Stop pinning women against each other, April. Why are you always going to do that? Come on.
I preferred Bossy Pants, but also I enjoyed both of them. My problem is that it almost seems it's very formula. I mean, it's interesting to see how both of them came up in a male-dominated business. Similar to like you fixated on the teeth and you had never noticed. Tina Fey talks about the scar on her face that she got as a child when she was attacked, and I had never noticed that she had a scar on her face. So, but anyway, so it's both of them. Both books were great. But I felt they were very similar to each other, and I did sort of read them in like the same year, and so it seemed a little formulaic to me.
So I want to say that I remember the scar only because it was the way that I was able to determine if the person that was speaking was actually Sarah Palin or Tina Fey. Because there was a time when she would do the Sarah Palin thing, and I thought that was her. But then I realized that one of them had a scar and that it was Tina Fey, and then I would look for that as sort of like a clue. Because you know I'm bad with faces.
Oh, I bet it was even worse for you, but also she did a spot on.
Right?
Yeah.
So good.
So good. It is interesting. I love autobiographies, period. Like, it's a thing. I love them. I remember it was maybe second grade, and it was an assignment that we had to pick an autobiography, and the autobiography that I picked was Clara Barton.
Who's Clara Martin?
Very famous nurse. Don't remember much else about her. Maybe it had to do with the Civil War. I can't remember.
Did you read the autobiography?
I did, and I did my report on it. And I quickly followed that with an obsession with Annie Oakley. And so for a time there, I
didn't see the segue between a nurse from the Civil War and Annie Oakley. Did you catch a segue, Tracy?
I think it was famous women with books about them.
That I read in elementary school.
That she read in elementary school.
Oh, yeah. See, obviously Tracy knows you better than me, is what's happening here.
That checks out.
It's fine. Yeah. It's fine.
So it's interesting you say that because I don't like autobiographies. And it's not that I don't like them. I don't seek them out. But I did read Bossy Pants because who doesn't love Tina Fey? That was my first experience with an autobiography read, because I listened to it, read by the author. So it felt like a conversation I was having with Tina, and she just wouldn't let me get a word in. And that it just kind of blew my mind, because I was like, I want to hear more about what you want to tell me about yourself, which I guess when I was just reading them or when I was younger, it just never presented itself that way to me. And so now I kind of look for more books like Penn Jillette from Penn and Teller. He wrote a book called God No, and it's not all about, but it touches a little bit on his atheism, and it talks about him and Teller's performing in Las Vegas and his weight loss and all this kind of stuff that personalizes him more. It makes him feel, again, it was like we were having a conversation and I just didn't get my turn to talk.
And that is the guy that talks, right?
Yeah, he's the one that talks, yes. Okay. And it was really interesting to learn, and he's hilarious. I think Penn and Teller are hilarious. I always have. So listening to him rant for, a few hours was hilarious to me because, and the big thing is because I agree with his politics and his religion. So
Right.
it was funnier to me than I guess if you were a right-leaning
I think, it's a preference thing. Like, I don't like to be embarrassed for characters.
Right.
Some people are, not liking people make fun of God. I get it. There's a difference.
Yeah.
I play Penn and Teller, well, more
They're
Penn.
magicians, right?
Penn Jillette.
Yeah.
I put him in the category with like George Carlin.
Yes. Yeah.
Because they are very smart and funny, but they are maybe a little bit harder or harsher than my personality allows. But without fail, every man that I've ever been truly attracted to love those two comedians.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
You know what I remember about Penn Jillette is that in an episode of The West Wing, which is my favorite show, they burned the flag. And it was like a huge controversy that they burned the American flag in the White House. Like, it was part of their shtick.
Yeah, I can see where that would be controversial. Yeah.
That makes sense. Some people would not like that.
People don't like it when you burn the flag.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't particularly care for it myself.
A lot of people don't even like it if you kneel during.
Yeah, those people are stupid.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't like those people.
All right. So
that'll get edited out.
Let's transition.
Okay, wait. I have one more. Autobiographical collection.
And I didn't even get to talk about mine, so we're not ready yet, Michelle.
I want to talk about H. John Benjamin.
Ooh, a new name.
He is the voice of Archer and the voice of Bob from Bob's Burgers, among other things. I admit I was attracted to him because of his voice, is why I got the book to begin with. And again, I got the Audible, so he's reading it.
He lives in Atlanta, right?
Does he?
I think all those Archer people I thought lived in Atlanta because they work at.
I get the feeling that maybe you should not tell Tracy that.
They work at my dad's garage, like most of the cast.
Right.
So.
I might hunt him down.
I feel like we're setting him up for stalking right now.
Yeah, Sorry, whoever you are.
His name is BJ Novak.
Yeah, his name is BJ?
No, it's H. John.
Oh, it's H. John.
It's Tracy and her initials. She likes those men with those initials.
I do. I like the mystery of not knowing your name.
It's an added layer.
So he wrote a book, Failure is an Option, and he talks about how he got to where he is by failing other things. So it's kind of a cute premise there. And he tells this story about his IBS, his irritable bowel syndrome, and a rental car on the way to a convention.
Oh, God, poor thing.
I was laughing so hard. It was one of those where you're laughing so hard, you have to rewind 30 seconds to hear what you were
laughing over.
Because you were laughing so hard. And it is just, I mean, if you're a fan of Archer or Bob's Burgers or anything like that, you definitely need to listen to his book.
I have to be in the mood for Archer. Like, it has to be 3 a.m. I have to be still slightly buzzed.
Love Archer.
And like eating cold pizza in my underwear to enjoy Archer. What's your favorite autobiography?
Okay, Clara Barton, I did not LOL. Okay, Annie Oakley, I did not LOL. But have y'all read Norm Macdonald's?
No, but I love Norm Macdonald.
I love Norm Macdonald. It goes back to that absurdist humor. It always gets me. So he wrote one, and I think it's called, I'm drawing a blank, but it's like based on a real story, based on a true story. But it's not. I mean, fully probably 80% of it is just he's making that shit up. But I get it because even the things that he chooses to fabricate, and I say fabricate very consciously because it's work. He's a fabricator, like a welder. He is building this thing. It's intentional. He's very smart with what he does. He's lying his ass off, but there are just these little sprinklings of truth through it. So even though it's a patently false, that there's this truth behind it, and it is hilarious. I also love that he's not afraid to look ridiculous. So the premise of the whole book is that it's almost like a Fear and Loathing, like a Hunter S. Thompson kind of a thing, where he and his acquaintance they're going to Vegas, right? Because he's been pretty open about the fact that he has a gambling problem. And I think he says like 3 or 4 times in his life, he has lost everything. Like he has let it ride. He's been belly up and lost everything.
Getting like a sense that a lot of things that you think are funny come from like some weird sort of internalized personal pain.
I've never
sensing from you like a lot of the stories that you're telling today about books that you've read that you really enjoyed come from some sort of weird, they've internalized their personal pain and made jokes out of it. But like deep-seated stuff like house of being haunted and scared to death out of your mind and like gambling and losing all of your money and shit and basic depravity, like horror things that like the rest of us are like,
not sure.
I don't want that to happen to me.
Well,
but,
okay, but that's just a tiny piece of it. That's okay. I don't want to get.
I mean, it's okay
here.
If you appreciate.
I don't want to go
deep. Joy in a horrible situation. I'm not. That doesn't make you a bad person. I'm not saying that.
Well, I think what I appreciate.
I'm sensing a theme.
It's the absurdist quality that I like taking something just as far and ridiculous as possible. So like he's talking about it, and I'm pretty sure it's not true based off of the veracity of the rest of the book. But he makes this big thing about how he had this huge thing for Sarah Silverman when he was on the Saturday Night Live, and he approaches her and he's all like, he's going to proposition her for a date, and he's like, I will take you and I will buy you a beefsteak. And the two of us will canoodle and flirt until the entire world and all of its people shrinks to just the two of us and this small table. And then I will take you home where we will lie like swine. Right? It's just hilarious, right? And then she gets offended by that. And he's like, I know what I did wrong. I know what I did wrong. She's a liberal woman. She's a woman of the day. She can buy her own beefsteak, right? She makes just as much money as I do, except minus 30% because, she's a woman. But what a woman, right? And then he's like, and she's lucky she never ran into anybody from payroll because she's such a woman that if they ever met her, she'd be getting paid 60% less than I do. It's just, that's sweet to me. I felt like that was a really sweet thing to say. And then in a way, in his way. And then, so then it spirals into this whole thing where she gets a restraining order and he's confused by it. And I just think it's hilarious. It's smart. And also Norm Macdonald, very good writer. Like the whole thing about the world shrink. Like if he wanted to, he could get me tingling if he wanted to,
I think he did get you tingling. That's what I think.
Sounds like it. Sounds like you want some beefsteak.
Well, so the premise of this book though is that
beefsteak. That's what I'm thinking.
So the premise of his autobiography is that he and his acquaintance are on their way to Vegas because he's come up with this, madcap plan to come up with $1 million so that he can retire. And interspersed with that is his life story. And then there's like this crazy thing where like his ghostwriter keeps interjecting to be like, this dude is the worst person I've ever met. Anyway, it's just really, it's inventive. It's not formulaic, obviously. And in its way, like in its hidden secret way, I think it reveals even more about him than straight up autobiographies like Bossy Pants or Yes, Please. And that's all I have to say about that.
All right. Well, then let's talk about stories that are funny. And we were just talking about what kinds of things that we think are funny. And personally, for me, I think that I like a pun. I like a word play.
Really?
I'm a fan of the puns.
What?
You are
I'm a fan of the word play. I like it cheesy. I like it obvious. I like it simple. Right? Like the obvious joke is my favorite joke. I love that. Like, like the joke where like the answer is just the thing and not a funny. Like I love that. So,
what's red and sticky?
Yeah. What's wet and sticky?
A stick.
It's wet, like a wet stick?
No, red. The color red.
Oh, it's red and sticky.
Yeah, a stick. Or it could be brown. Okay, just edit this part out.
No, we won't because I want to add to it. This was my favorite joke in school.
Okay.
Michele, what starts with F and ends with UCK? Fire truck.
Fire truck.
Dirty girl. What were you thinking? That's for Olivia. Hashtag 1991.
I mean, I think that's a great joke. I like that joke. I'm a fan of that joke. But I'm thinking about that and penis puns, as Tracy mentioned earlier, and I recently had to reread a book for book club that I'd already read and I've already talked about on previous podcasts, The Lightning Struck Heart. So freaking funny. Oh my God. Like I'm like in here listening to it, trying to work, and then I'm laughing, and then Rob's like, what are you laughing about? This keeps happening because the first time I listened to this book, I was like on an airplane and my coworkers were like, what are you laughing about?
Is this the
I'm
dragon?
laughing, I'm tittering so much that people are noticing and I'm having to explain myself. I'm just saying it's that funny. And it's mostly because of the penis puns.
I just finished that book also for book club, and I too was laughing out loud, and it was penis jokes and sex jokes and so many funny situations and things and songs, candlesticks, and it
Candlesticks? What is the song? Cheesy Dicks and Candlesticks?
Cheesy Dicks and Candlesticks, yes. And it's just funny, you know?
That's just good comedy.
It's good comedy. Gay fairy married. He was about to get gay fairy married.
And I think that the narrator really does makes the book. Like I think if I was reading it, I don't think it would be as funny.
No, I don't think so either.
I think the narrator really does it.
Yeah, the narrator did a fantastic, funny job. Very funny book, and I've already started book 2.
Even if it is technically, or maybe a sort of dragon porn, which is what keeps you from book club, Tracy.
Yes, it did. It did keep me from book club for a few months. Now that we're actually reading dragons having sex with unicorns, I think it's fantastic.
Well, I'm going to put it on my list because it has come up more than once, so it must be good.
Yes.
Well, so I think the first book that I can remember just LOLing to was in high school, and it was Catch-22.
What?
Catch-22.
Catch-22?
Yeah, it's this absurdist type humor. It's like, it's like war-based. It was probably written in this maybe 60. I feel like maybe it was the Korean War, so late 50. I don't know. But there was a war, and there's like a major, and it's just like the whole Catch-22. That's where the phrase comes from, a Catch-22.
Sure.
Is in the book. You have to be crazy to get out of service, but you can't get out of service unless you are like, look, this is fucked up, I gotta go. But if you can say, hey, this is fucked up, I gotta go, then you must not be crazy, because that's the only sane thing you can say. And so it's a Catch-22. If you go to medic and it's like, this is fucked up, I gotta go, well, then you're sane, so you can't leave. So I mean, so it's like, it did, trust me, I remember LOLing a lot in that book. And then
I just want to point out again, this is a very dark place.
Very dark place.
That April thinks is funny.
War, hilarious.
Just an additional sort of representation.
Mental illness.
I'm gonna have to process this later because I've never considered myself like liking dark comedy. Like, I did not think Heather's was funny at all.
Heather's was funny. I
didn't know. I don't like that. I just felt sad for everybody.
Well, everybody needed to be felt sad for at the end.
Yeah, but as far as like more, so there was this, and I wonder if Jess has read this. If you can remember Jess from season 1, who was our expert on romance. And we talked a little bit about it then, that my favorite romances were books that had really engaging, funny dialogue. And the book that always comes to mind as an example of that for me is This Heart of Mine by Susan Elizabeth Phillips. And she wrote normally I like historical. I'm like 90%, if I'm going to read romance, I want it to be historical romance.
Checks out.
Regency period. I like the whole thing, like a Jane Austen-y sort of thing, with sex. But it's modern day, and I typically am not into that. But and even more weird, like, imagine this. Think of me, April Freeman. She wrote this whole series where the backstory for all of them is there's like the Chicago football team. And,
oh yeah, you did talk about this on this episode. I remember now.
And so the
this
football.
Was the baby one where she pretends to have a baby or sleeps with
That was a
everybody to
different
get
one.
pregnant.
The one that was a different one in the series, right? The one that I'm talking about has to do with Molly, who was like the baby sister of the strong, powerful woman who became the owner of the football team. She's zany, and I love her so much. And she's always tried to be like this perfect person, but that's not who she really is. She's really awkward and weird, and that just needs to be embraced. And so the football player because it's all about the football players. And so she is all in, every time she just gets a little stir crazy, and maybe she does some crazy stuff.
So my first foray into humor novels was when I was in high school. A friend gave me a copy of a Piers Anthony book.
Oh.
The Xanth series, yes. Looking back on it, I'm sure, Michele, if you haven't read it, you would love it because it was full of puns. And it was hilarious. And I thought the premise was just so funny because if you don't know the Xanth series, they live in a country that kind of looks like Florida. And there's Lake Okeechobee instead of Lake Okeechobee. And there's things like that. So it's loosely based on Florida, which is where Piers Anthony lives. And it was they were very punny and very funny. And that is kind of what introduced me that novels, because prior to then I read a lot of the same novels my mom did. So it was a lot of Stephen King, and a lot of the more darker horror novels that I still enjoy. Mm-hmm. But then I also was introduced to, look, books can be funny too. And then of course, after that, Douglas Adams, he's a classic,
Right? Classic.
Hitchhikers.
Gotta go Douglas Adams. Found some Terry Pratchett.
You introduced me to Terry Pratchett.
Yep, Terry Pratchett, who is hilarious. Rest in peace, Terry. Rest in peace, Douglas Adams. As far as I know, Piers Anthony is still alive. So rest in, whatever.
Help.
And then lately, what I have found that I've also shared with you is Drew Hayes.
I love Drew Hayes.
Drew Hayes, who...
NPC, yeah.
NPC, he wrote a book, NPC, which is about an adventure game like Dungeons and Dragons, but from the NPCs, the innkeepers' point of view.
The non-playing characters.
The non-playing characters, which I love the concept of the spin, and there was lots of humor in the book, and I do like it when they take something that you think and just look at it from a different angle.
I thought it was very like that Red Shirts novel. Did you read Red Shirts?
Yep, exactly.
They turn it to that sort of similar vibe.
Yep,
like
exactly.
A Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead kind of a thing? Or not? Okay.
I don't know. What's that one about? I've heard of it.
I don't know. I've heard of it, but I don't.
It's like two very obscure characters in Shakespeare, and they make a whole play about those two minor characters.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
I'm just smarter than y'all.
Yes, you are, April.
You're smarter than us, for sure.
So for you to know that, if you enjoyed that, there must have been some trauma. One of them got their legs cut off or something.
I feel like I've not represented myself well.
What happened to them? Were they decapitated?
Yeah, a little PTSD in there. Hilarious. Another thing Drew Hayes writes about is a vampire. He was an accountant that was turned into a vampire, and so he still is an accountant, and he doesn't like doing vampire stuff. Instead, he keeps the books and does tax returns for all of the magical creatures in the world, or not in the world, but in his area. He's a very highly respected accountant. So I like the twists like that. Mm-hmm. Another one I want to talk about. Oh, I've got two more. Oh my goodness, I have so many books.
Okay, what else?
Christopher Moore. I have him sitting right here. Christopher Moore, Fool, which is a retelling of King Lear. And the term fuck stockings is often in this book, which makes me laugh. Fuck stockings. So see, I'm smart too, April. I can reference Shakespeare, King Lear. Fool.
That's very good.
I meant the record should show that I referenced Shakespeare first in the podcast.
Yes.
You did. You totally did.
Okay.
So,
so we're all three very smart.
Just saying.
So here's the thing. I read one Christopher Moore book, and I'm about to say something that I hope isn't too harsh.
Which book was it first?
I feel like it had to do with vampires.
So it was probably You Suck?
No, it wasn't. It was...
Or maybe A Dirty Job?
No.
That was Death.
Well, let me just tell you what
I have a couple
the point
of
is, the point is that yes, it was funny. But what he reminded me of, and I hope he never hears this, since you wanted to just show off the display, he's like a poor man's Tom Robbins.
Oh, I love Tom Robbins.
I feel like Christopher Moore is
I mean, I don't want to cast aspersions on Christopher Moore. I don't know him, but I do love Tom Robbins.
Well, I am poor, so maybe that's why I like him.
Well, I'm poor too, but have you read Tom Robbins?
April.
I haven't read Tom Robbins.
Oh, okay.
You haven't read Tom Robbins?
I don't think I have.
I have some Tom Robbins books I can lend you.
Okay,
I have them all right here on my shelf.
Them all.
Because here's the thing, Tom Robbins, and he hasn't written anything new in a long time. But even when I probably, Michele, you're the same. The first book was Still Life with Woodpecker.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I'm going to start from the beginning. Here's the thing. You can't go into Tom Robbins lightly.
Although there aren't any vampire accountants in Tom Robbins.
There are not. But it's that same sort of like, it's out there, bizarre kind of humor. I feel like, Tracy, you would love Tom Robbins. I really do. My hesitation, and the reason why with so many books, you know, we get into this thing where we're like, we're going to read every single one. We go on this binge.
Mm-hmm.
I could never do that with Tom because it's a trip. Like, I feel like before I go, I've got to make a list. I've got to pack appropriately. You can't just go unprepared into a new Tom Robbins book. It's something that you have. It's my experience. That's my experience. It's not a light read. It's not a superficial read. It's super funny, but there are some deep, like,
the fact that April likes it, you can immediately assume that there's going to be some lows.
Yeah, there's going to be some trauma
mixed in with the highs. There's going to be some lows.
That's so funny because of the three of us, I feel like I'm the most fluffy.
You have probably the best like brain chemistry as like maintaining a good sort of even keel. But I think that might be why you're able to find joy in a horror show, whereas someone who maybe isn't as balanced. Chemically balanced might not be able to manage it as well. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
I feel like I'm doing these authors a disservice. I promise you, they are funny. They were super.
I agree. I mean, Tom Robbins is funny. I remember laughing. I do.
But it's not an easy read. It's not something that you're just, I mean, it requires thought. You know, you have to, it's an investment. You know, you got to get in what you put in, sort of a thing.
Okay. So, Tracy, did you have another book other than the Christopher Moore book that you want to talk about?
The last one I would like to bring to your attention is a series by Stephen Campbell, and he's called Hard Luck Hank.
Oh.
And this is in outer space. He is on a space station, and he is like a bodyguard, kind of private detective kind of guy. And he has a disorder where he's slowly getting replaced by more and more metal bits. Like as he scars, it turns into metal, so he's very dense. And it makes him harder and harder to do his job because he's actually weighing more and more. And it's getting hard to stay on the space station because of his density.
Well, that sounds right up my alley.
And his catchphrase, it does. It's really funny, I promise. And his catchphrase is "suck it, suckface," which right there is hilarious.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. And there's appropriate amounts of sex humor and some toilet humor because, of course, you can imagine he has a girlfriend, of course, as one does when you're.
And is she also becoming an android?
She's a gorgeous human. She's a police detective.
Oh.
Yeah, and he's her secret weapon. So, but it's very humorous. It's the light humor. It's not a book that you have to prepare for. It's a book that you can just kind of slip into while you're doing the dishes, or running errands or something. There isn't a lot of trauma except physical trauma to his body. But again, it's even done in a humorous way, like the slapstick comedy, which I don't think we've talked a lot about slapstick because I think slapstick's probably hard to do in a book.
Physical humor, I think, is harder to do in a book than it is on TV, visual medium and all. Yeah. I'm trying to think of any examples of physical humor that I've read in a book. There was some in the book that I mentioned, the Lightning Struck Heart.
Yeah, I mean, it's always funny when people fall over, or
it's sort of, I guess it's sort of like we kind of covered this in our skimming episode.
Way back in the very first episode.
Exactly. You kind of skim over that stuff, so it's like an action scene. You don't necessarily visualize the physical part.
Right, you don't take the time to like feel the fairies and stuff. Even like when it's funny, you're like, okay, get us there.
Hang on.
Yeah.
Where's the dialogue? The dialogue is what I want.
I don't know what you said, but I know what I heard, and I feel like it's a new catchphrase for us.
What did I say?
You don't take the time to feel the fairies.
Fairies. I think I might have meant Perry's.
I heard the fairies too, and I was like,
but I could have said fairies because I was thinking of maybe gay fairy married. I don't know why I said fairies, but I think I meant fairies.
That's what we're gonna say from now on. Whenever someone's skimming through and not really paying attention, we're gonna say, "Are you taking time to feel the fairies?"
Gotta feel those fairies.
I mean, I don't want to feel the fairies necessarily.
Without consent.
I mean, those fuckers will slip you up, man. The fae are dangerous.
The more you read about fairies, the less you like them.
The fae are not. I mean,
they are
not to be trusted.
The whole Holly Black series now, I can't even think about fairies without being a little bit frightened.
I didn't enjoy that series. I'm out.
You didn't?
I'm done with it. Yeah.
Oh, I loved it.
I know you did. And
it's not funny though, so we're not going to talk about it now.
Okay.
All right. I think we should move on to the bookend.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right. So
let me just say the most recent book that I've read of pure fiction that I LOL'd so many times and I've just commented on Facebook was French Exit.
Oh, I saw that post. I was like, thanks for not tagging me in it, bitch.
Well, obviously, exactly. This is a very dysfunctional story, and I don't want to give too much of it away, but if you love that absurdist element of it, just going as far as an idea can go. Mm-hmm. But it also had a very, Salinger-esque Glass family thing where the interactions that they have, like the people and the way that they talk to each other, on the one hand seems so unrealistic. Like, who would be okay with that? Who would be able to just nonchalantly talk about this in such a dispassionate way? But it's also kind of beautiful in that they just accept the other person so fully that it's not critical, So anyways, it's so funny. And what's interesting is I did not realize this until people started commenting on the fact of this book, but they are making a movie of it that's coming out in some time. But also it's the same writer who did The Sisters Brothers, which I did not read the book, but I saw the movie on
The Sisters Brothers.
Yeah, it's a Western. You guys know I love Westerns.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it was like Joaquin Phoenix and that other like really great character actor that I can't think of right now. I would say unquestionably the best Western that I've seen in the last 10 years, because they're really just not making good Westerns these days. Except for maybe the Ballad of Scruggs.
Oh, Buster Scruggs?
Yeah, that was super, super good. So it was sort of in that same thing. But anyway, same author, so I'm going to read The Sisters Brothers now. I just assumed it was just a movie. I didn't realize it was based on a book. But I think that's going to be like my new favorite author.
Oh, what's his name? Or her name?
His name is Patrick DeWitt.
DeWitt. All right, this is how the bookend plays out. I'm going to read the name of a book, and you're going to tell me who wrote the book. If you can successfully tell me who wrote the book, I'm going to give you 10 points. If you don't know who wrote the book, say nothing. I'm going to then give you I'm going to give you 3 options, an A, a B, and a C. Different people could be. Then you can guess on those 3. If you guess correctly on one of those 3, I'm going to give you 5 points. Yes, April?
Do we need to wait till all 3 choices are read?
Yes.
Okay.
So that way if people are playing along at home, they have the opportunity to hear them all. But if you know it immediately, feel free to shout it out. And then I'll give you 10 points. There are no buzzers. It's a free-for-all. What?
Can I just insert one thing that I would like to be in the podcast? We're going to go back to the Jenny Slate thing.
Oh, shit. Okay. Is this related and not related to what's happening right now?
Yeah, it does have to do with the bookend. I just don't want to end the podcast without making a point about the Jenny Slate thing and a larger conversation about the audiobook medium and whether or not in that way it is better to hear it rather than read it.
Okay, we'll make your point.
I purchased the book and I purchased the audiobook for 2 reasons. One, it's reading it in her own voice, and she's adorable, and the way that she read it is way better than I described it to you guys and how I would have heard it in my head. So I started out with the audiobook first.
Right.
But in listening to her read it, I needed the hard copy because she's such a good writer. And this is something that I hadn't really realized about audiobooks before. Audiobooks move on even if you're not ready.
It's
You
true.
know,
That's true.
I wanted to sit with those words and really think about what she had said. But listening to the audiobook, she was already on to some other equally fascinating thing that I wanted to hear. I needed the book. I needed to be able to read it and sit with it for as long as I wanted to before turning the page.
So I think that that's true also, like in the book that we talked about, the Witch book is that Terry Pratchett?
Mm-hmm, yes.
The language was so rich and full, and in listening to it, you don't have time to really soak it in, all the language, because it's just like, oh, this is happening, and then, oh, this is happening, and the action keeps moving, and then you don't really have those moments to like think about the language and how beautiful it is and how the words sort of meld together and the quick little puns and turns of phrases. You don't get a chance to like really play with them. I think that I would have gotten something else out of it if I'd read it than if I just listened to it. But I would still prefer to listen to it, but I agree sometimes it's better that you can go back and be like, let me just, what could that have meant also, you know? Was that an entendre? Double entendre.
So have there been books though that, because you, like Michele, I know your go-to is the audiobook.
Right.
Have there been books that when you were listening to, you were like, nope, this goes on my shelf. I need it.
No.
No.
The only time I ever buy a book is if I'm going to meet the author and I want them to sign it, or if the book is not available in audio and I want to read it.
Really?
Now,
And
there are
Tracy?
books, I've never said that, well, I have to read this one. Now, there are books where I have said, I need to see some of these words, especially with the high fantasy. There's some names you need to see to full, because you
Right.
can hear it, but you need to see, is that an S or a C? And there's a
Yeah.
silent Z in there or something.
I just Google
Yeah.
them.
I'm that way too, especially when it's geography, like,
right, exactly.
or something in a foreign language.
Yep,
It's very hard for me to.
Then I do like to see, then I do like to see a list of the names, because a lot of times that'll have like either a family tree or a list of characters and their relation to one another, and even the maps and stuff. I do like to reference those, but that's usually getting the high fantasy stuff where it's so many new concepts and words and places introduced all at once. But otherwise, I can't think of ever preferring a hardback or preferring a concrete book.
No, if I really love it, I need it. I need to be able to have a physical, tangible thing in my house that is a testament to how much I loved it. And I also just really need to know how things are spelled, even simple things, not like it doesn't necessarily have to be fantasy. Like if there's a character in a book, like French Exit, where one of the characters' name is Madeline, I need to know, how did they spell Madeline?
Mm-hmm.
Was it the way I spell my daughter's name, or was it the way the French spelling? I needed to know that, because especially if I'm going to write about it, if I'm going to say anything about it.
So usually like that's, so like sometimes like I want to post on like the Wheel of Time Facebook group, and I don't know how to spell Egwene because it's Egwene. It's a weird name.
And you've only ever heard it.
And I've only ever heard it. And so I'll just Google it and then it'll come up.
Well, that's one way to do it.
Just say Egwene from the Wheel of Time and then shoop. It'll tell me all the ways, things of Egwene.
But does it sit in your heart the same?
I mean, I feel like Wheel of Time is in my heart. It's the Wheel.
Yeah, we've talked about that. As much as I feel like the written word sits with me, you say you feel the same about.
I mean, I'm an audio person. Like that's how I hear things. I don't see things. I don't notice anything. But if I hear it, I hear it. So, all right. I'm glad that we had that segue. But now we're gonna do the bookend.
Okay.
All right. First book is Born a Crime.
Trevor Noah.
Right. 10 points to Tracy. The second book, Bossy Pants.
Tina Fey.
Tina Fey.
Oh, Tracy got it.
Bitch.
Funny and Farsi, a memoir of growing up an Iranian in America.
Mindy Kaling.
No.
That dude that was in the movie about the crystals.
Your options are A, Guy Brennan, B, Fruze Dumas, C, Jenny Lawson.
Jenny Lawson.
No.
A.
No.
B.
B is correct, Tracy.
Neither of us get those points. Neither of us get those
Neither of
points.
us get those.
You're right. Nobody gets the points. You guys,
Yeah.
Okay. Number 4. I feel bad about my neck and other thoughts on being a woman. A, Carrie Fisher. B, Nora Ephron. C, Irma Bombeck.
Nora Ephron.
That's correct.
Damn right it is. I knew that in my soul.
April gets 5 points. All right. Number 5, wishful drinking. A, Issa Rae. B, Helen Fielding. C, Carrie Fisher.
Carrie Fisher.
That is correct. April gets 5.
These are books on my wish list I've not read.
Number 6, Let's Pretend This Never Happened, a mostly true memoir. A, Jenny Lawson. B, Helen Fielding. C, Irma Bombeck.
A, Jenny Lawson.
That's correct, Tracy, for 5 points.
Who's Jenny Lawson?
I don't know, but
She wrote a book called Let's Pretend This Never Happened.
keep saying her name. It had to come up eventually.
All right, number 7. Is everyone hanging out without me and other concerns?
Mindy Kaling.
That is Mindy Kaling.
That is Mindy
I got
Kaling.
it.
I'm going to
I
give
got
that
it.
Got it.
to
All right,
April.
all right. You can have that one, April.
Damn right. I didn't have it. I earned it.
Yeah.
You didn't give it to me.
Number 8. My Life as a Goddess, a memoir through unpopular culture.
My Life as a Goddess.
That was by Tracy Stegall.
Popular.
That's incorrect. A, Guy Branum. B, Mindy Kaling. C, Amy Poehler.
Amy. A.
Tracy is correct for 5 points. Guy Branum.
I mean, we both don't know who she is.
I think it's a chap, actually. Number 9, The Last Black Unicorn.
Tiffany Haddish.
That's correct. April for 10 points.
Thank you. I did read that one.
Number 10, Yes, Please.
Amy Poehler.
Ooh, that's a tie. I'm going to give you
don't
both
you
points.
you were giving
That was exactly the same time. Exactly
well, you know what?
the same.
The replay will show that, but fine.
The replay will show I won
like,
that one.
I feel
We'll
like it
let
was
her have
exactly
it.
the same. All
You're
right.
giving her like
I'm the guest, April. Be nice.
Number 11.
that checks out.
If life is a bowl full of cherries, what am I doing in the pit?
Irma Bombeck.
That's correct, April, for 10 points. Number 12. The Misadventures of an Awkward Black Girl.
Issa Rae.
That's correct, April.
Nice.
Was not a
10
fan.
points.
Nailing it.
I read it. It was. Oh, that's a great example of one that if you read is hilarious. The audio, not so much.
All right, number 13. Bridget Jones' Diary.
Bridget Jones.
No, that is.
A, Irma Bombeck. B, Helen Fielding. C,
Helen
John
Fielding.
Kennedy Toole. That's correct, April, for 5 points. Number 14, The Lightning Struck Heart.
T.J. Nevin.
A,
People in your
TJ Klune.
initials.
B, John Kennedy Toole. C, William Goldman.
A.
That's right, Tracy.
It's not John Kennedy O'Toole. That was the literary darling that we talked about.
Speaking of literary darlings, number 15, A Confederacy of Dunces.
That's the Tool.
A, William Goldman. B, John Kennedy Toole. And C, Tom Robbins.
Kennedy O'Toole.
She earned that one. She earned that one.
I'm going to give you 10 for that. All right. Number 16, Crazy Rich Asians. A, Kevin Kwan. B, Lindy West. C, Mindy Kaling.
A.
That's correct, Tracy, for 5 points. All right. Number 17, The Princess Bride.
Oh.
A, Lindy West. B, TJ Klune. C, William Goldman.
William Goldman.
Neither of us.
We call that a tie.
We call it a tie.
All right, we're going to cross that one out. All right.
We don't want to go 2.5 points each.
Number 18, Big Trouble.
In Little China?
Just Big Trouble. A, Tina Fey. B, Irma Bombeck. C, Dave Barry.
C.
Dave Barry.
Tracy for Dave Barry.
Oh, she took the shortcut of just saying the letter. I was like giving you the name.
Still worked.
Fine.
Still said it before you. All right, number 19.
Okay, well, that's how it's going to go. Noted.
Jitterbug perfume.
Tom Robbins.
That's correct, April, for 10 points. Number 20, equal rights.
Terry Pratchett.
Very good, Tracy, for 10 points. Number 11, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Douglas Adams.
That's correct, Tracy. Shrill, Notes from a Loud Woman.
Kathy Griffin.
A. Lindy West. B. Issa Rae. C. Roseanne Barr.
Roseanne Barr.
No.
A.
Yes, Tracy, it is Lindsay West.
Who's Mindy West, Tracy?
She wrote
Lindsay
Shrill,
West.
Notes from a Loud Woman.
She's my best friend. We went to high school together.
All right. 23, Where the Sidewalk Ends.
So Shel Silverstein.
Right, Tracy got that one.
You threw us a curveball with that one.
All right, number 24, The Importance of Being Earnest.
Oscar Wilde.
That's correct. And last but not least, Deep Thoughts.
Jack Handy.
Jack Handy.
Correct, Jack Handy, Tracy.
Son of a bitch.
All right. So Tracy had 10, 20, 25, 30, 45, 50, 65, 75, 80, 90, 100 points for Tracy. April. See your tits.
We're just entertaining ourselves.
April had 5,
That's
10,
more than 5.
60, 65,
This is a lot
75.
I'm probably gonna write
85.
a funny essay about this. Trauma.
With trauma. in it,
95.
yeah.
Tracy beat you by 5 points.
Oh, there's your trauma. There's your trauma, April.
95 to 100.
There's your trauma.
Thank you very much for joining us for another episode of Book Eaters. Until next time,
Eat the books, motherfucker.
eat the books, motherfucker.
But just don't choke while you're laughing.
Oh, yeah.
You're welcome. I ad-libbed that.
That was nice. That was nice.
I think your improv is rubbing off on
I don't fucking do improv.
That's because you already took the classes. They were fantastic. It's
I do sketch comedy for the
Your
last
classes.
goddamn time.
Go.